Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. Thank you very much. It's lovely oh boy. It's lovely to talk to you people today. Let's enunciate. Okay, the first word in this episode, which is the bottom of 158, moving on to the top of 159. It is the word bruise. B-R-U-I-S-E. Bruise. First form. This is a verb from the 14th century, starting with transitive. 1A is archaic. Synonym is disable. 1B, synonyms are batter and dent. 2, to inflict a bruise on. Synonym is contuse. C-O-N-T-U-S-E. As in, a contusion would be the noun that comes from a contuse or contusing. Number 3, to break down, as leaves or berries, by pounding. And a synonym is crush. That's what they do to make wine, right? They crush, they break down, they probably more than just bruise the berries, the grapes. Number 4, synonyms are wound and injure. Especially to inflict psychological hurt on, as in a bruised ego. So not only is it bruising the skin, the blood vessels physically, but it could also be a mental bruise. Now we have the intransitive definitions. 1, to inflict a bruise. 2, to undergo bruising, as in, her skin bruises easily. What makes skin bruise easily? There's something very thin that allows the blood vessels to break under the skin. Is it the dermis? Is it the epidermis? Is it the fat? Is it or the other tissue? Is it the muscle? Are the blood vessels just weaker than other people? I don't know the science of this. I'm asking you. You're the one who's supposed to tell me. I don't know what it is. I don't feel like I particularly bruise easily, although I've definitely gotten bruised. I feel like my skin is sort of tough. I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Look at the etymology. Anything interesting to say from Anglo-French bruser or brisser, which means to break, of Celtic origin, akin to the Old Irish bruid, B-R-U-I-D, which means he shatters. From Old English braisan, which means to bruise, akin to the Old Irish, again, bruid, from Latin frustrum, which means piece, P-I-E-C-E, like a piece of something, a piece of pie. Ooh, I could go for some pie. Sorry, I just breathed in my phlegm. Okay, second form of bruise. This is a noun from 1541. Aren't you glad I'm not doing any editing or retakes? This is wonderful. 1A, an injury involving rupture of small blood vessels and discoloration without a break in the overlying skin. I wonder why they put this form of bruise after the other one. I feel like if you don't know what it is, you should probably read this one first, because people read the dictionary in order, right? You should read this one first, so you have some context over what the next one, or the verb one means, but that's not how it happened. Okay, and then a synonym for 1A here is contusion, like the one I mentioned in the last one. 1B, a similar injury to plant tissue. Number 2, synonyms are abrasion and scratch. 3, an injury, especially to the feelings. My feelings are bruised and battered and abrased and scratched and dented and disabled and contused. Now we have the word bruiser, noun from 1744, a big husky man. So not only is it possibly the one who's doing the bruising, but it's also just a big husky man. They have the potential to easily bruise other people. Now we have bruising, adjective from 1852. Synonyms are arduous and taxing. Arduous is spelled A-R-D-U-O-U-S. As in a long and bruising courtroom battle. Now we have, let's see. So what's interesting about this one is that it doesn't have the pronunciation information right at the beginning like it usually does. It has different ones for the number 1 and the number 2 definitions. So it is spelled B-R-U-I-T. Number 1 definition says it's pronounced brute. And then the number 2 definition says it's pronounced brewy. So this is a noun from the 15th century First definition is brute. It is archaic. 1A, synonyms are noise and din, D-I-N. 1B, synonyms are report and rumor. So that is pronounced brute. Now with the second definition is brewy, or actually it's brewy. The emphasis is on the first syllable. And this says any of several generally abnormal sounds heard on auscultation or auscultation. Auscultation. A-U-S-C-U-L-T-A-T-I-O-N. So this is from Anglo-French, and it means noise. That's for both definitions. And then the number 2 definition more specifically says it is French, and it literally means noise, brewy. Okay, now we have the second form of this same word, but in this case it's just pronounced brute, B-R-U-T, although it's spelled B-R-U-I-T. It is a transitive verb from the 15th century. Synonyms are report and rumor, just like the 1B from the first form. And this says it is usually used with the word about, as in word of his imminent dismissal was bruited about? Bruited about. Wow, I've never heard about that. So it was reported around the office. It was rumored. It was bruited. Next we have brumal, B-R-U-M-A-L, adjective from 1513. It is archaic, indicative of an occurring in the winter. No, indicative of or occurring in the winter. And this is from the Latin word bruma, which means winter. Brumal is about, it has to do with winter, which is coming up. Now we have the word brumby, B-R-U-M-B-Y. It is a noun from 1880. It sounds like the name of a cartoon character or a puppet or something like that. It is Australian, and it is a wild or unbroken horse. Now we have broom. It is not the broom that you do the sweeping with. This is B-R-U-M-E. It is a noun from 1808. Synonyms are mist and fog. Broom. Brumis. Brumis is an adjective. So this is a French word. It means mist or winter, from the Old Occitan bruma, which is from the Latin word which means winter, which we just learned about mere moments ago. Also means solstice or winter. It says winter again. Why does it say winter again? Akin to the Latin word brevis, which means short, and there's more at the word brief. Next we have brummagem. Brummagem, B-R-U-M-M-A-G-E-M. This is an adjective from 1637. Synonym is spurious. Also, the definition, cheaply showy. And another synonym is tawdry, T-A-W-D-R-Y. And brummagem is also a noun. So this is an alternative form of Birmingham, England. Sort of similar, sort of not similar. And it is the source of the 17th century, or source in the 17th century of counterfeit groats, G-R-O-A-T-S. It's like goats, but with an R in there. I don't know what a counterfeit groat is, but it happened in Birmingham, England, and then they changed it to brummagem. Okay, that's a good word. Now we have brunch, something that I should probably eat. It is 10:06 here right now in the morning where I'm recording, when I'm recording, and I'm going to have to eat some food when I'm done with this. So this is a noun from 1896, way back then. A meal usually taken late in the morning that combines a late breakfast and an early lunch. And of course, this is combining breakfast and lunch to make brunch, although I don't know why we haven't coined dinner or dunch. I've been trying to do that for probably 20 or 30 years, but nobody will take me up on this. It's just a late lunch or an early dinner. It's a linner or a dunch. Next word is brunette. You can spell it. I had no idea about this. You could spell it two ways. B-R-U-N-E-T or B-R-U-N-E-T-T-E. That's the one I've seen, but I have not seen the first one. So, wow, what is with all this coughing today? So this is the first form. It is a noun from circa 1539. A person having brown or black hair and often a relatively dark complexion. And then, it's interesting. It says it is spelled brunette, the shorter way, when used of a boy or man, and usually brunette, the longer way, when used of a girl or woman. I honestly don't know. I don't think I knew that. But I guess it makes sense the way that English works. So now we have the second form of brunette, spelled the same ways. Adjective from 1709. And it is of a dark brown or black color, as in brunette hair. Also, having brunette hair, as in a brunette woman. And then again it says spelled brunette the short way when used of a boy or man, and usually brunette the long way when used of a girl or woman. So this is from, let's see, the French word brunette. They probably say brunet, which is the masculine of brunette, which is the feminine, which means brownish. From Old French brune, which means brown. From Middle Latin brunus. It is of Germanic origin akin to the Old High German brun, which means brown. Next we have brung, B-R-U-N-G. It is chiefly a dialect past form of the word bring. Some people, when they're saying the past form of bring, they'll say brought. Some people say brung. Next we have Brunhild. Capital B-R-U-N-H-I-L-D. It is a noun from 1842, a queen in Germanic legend won by Siegfried for Gunther. This is a German word, obviously. Brunhild. Next we have Brunswick stew. Stew is the second word. It's like the thick soup. Brunswick has a capital B. Noun from 1856. A stew made of vegetables and usually two meats, as chicken and squirrel. Was not expecting that one. This is from Brunswick County in Virginia, where squirrels and chickens are aplenty. Next we have brunt, B-R-U-N-T, noun from the 15th century. 1. The principal force, shock, or stress, as of an attack. Number 2. The greater part. Synonym is burden. And then the last word is, this one's funny because it can be pronounced different ways. I think people have whole conversations about how it can be pronounced. I think even in When Harry Met Sally, there was a whole thing about how do you pronounce this word? So this book says it can be pronounced bruschetta or bruschetta, but I think there are other ways that people like to say it. It is spelled B-R-U-S-C-H-E-T-T-A, bruschetta. This is a noun from 1954. Thick slices of bread, grilled, rubbed with garlic, drizzled with olive oil, often topped with tomatoes and herbs, and usually served as an appetizer. This is an Italian word from an Italian dialect in Tuscany, from the verb bruscare, which means to toast or burn. Hopefully it's not burnt. Probably from the vulgar Latin brusicare, frequently of brusare or bruciare, which means to burn. But it's preferred probably don't burn the bread. Maybe, some well toasted is fine, but I don't want to eat burnt bruschetta. But that's where it's from. So we had bruise, bruiser, bruising, brute, brewy, brummel, brumby, broom, broomagem, brunch, brunette, brung, brunhild, Brunswick stew, brunt, and bruschetta. Let's see. Well, just because I was so curious about it, I think I'm going to pick brummagem as the word of the episode. B-R-U-M-M-A-G-E-M. But I like some other ones. I like brunch for sure. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening to me cough and yammer on. And until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the brush episode of the dictionary. It's all brushes all day, all the time. The first word is brush, B-R-U-S-H. It is the first form It is a noun from the 14th century. One synonym is brushwood, which we will get to at the end of this episode. Number 2, A, scrub vegetation. Scrub vegetation. 2B, land covered with scrub vegetation. Let's see, this is, we can skip the etymology. Second form of brush, it is a noun from the 14th century. 1, a device composed of bristles typically set into a handle and used especially for sweeping, smoothing, scrubbing, or painting. I really wish that last one started with an S, so all 4 of those could be S's. Is there another word that starts with an S that has to do with painting? Not that I can think of. Why is my nose so darn itchy today? I just showered. Maybe it's just dry. All right. Number 2, something resembling a brush as 2A, a bushy tail. 2B, a feather tuft worn on a hat. 3, an electrical conductor that makes sliding contact between a stationary and a moving part, as of a generator or a motor. 4A, an act of brushing. 4B, a quick, light touch or momentary contact in passing. And I am not a painter. I guess I've sort of probably dabbled when I was a kid, but I never really felt comfortable with it. My dad and my mom, and I think even my sister, they're all good artists and painters, and with the paints and the brushes, and I find it fascinating what they can do and what painters can do all through the years with just various kinds of brushes and paint. And I definitely would like to try more about it, or more of it, if I ever had the space and the time. But I should have had my dad on this episode probably, so he can talk about brushes and techniques. But that maybe that's an exclusive. I don't know. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know why my brain just goes there. Okay, so third form of brush, it is a verb from the 15th century. Transitive only, it looks like. 1A, to apply a brush to. 1B, to apply with a brush. 2A, to remove with passing strokes, as of a brush. 2B, to dispose of in an offhand way. Synonym is dismiss, as in brushed him off. 3, to pass lightly over or across. Also, it says to touch gently against in passing. Touch gently against in passing. Like you can brush shoulders as you're passing somebody on the street. But not right now. I stay very far away from the people that I don't know. Even far away from the people I do know sometimes. Brusher is a noun. Fourth form of brush. It is a noun from the 14th century. A brief encounter or skirmish, as in a brush with disaster. Also as in a brush with the law. So this one is from Middle English bruschen, which means to rush. Oh no, I read that. No, did I read? Let's see. Yes, I read that correctly. It means rush or hostile collision. I got so distracted because I started to read the wrong etymology, but part of it was correct. Also, I possibly had a sneeze coming. So let's move on to the fifth form of brush. This one is an intransitive verb from 1674, to move lightly or heedlessly, as in brushed past the well-wishers waiting to greet him. That's an interesting example. It's not a quote, supposedly. So this one is also from Middle English bruschen, which means to rush, probably from Middle French brosser, to dash through underbrush. Yeah. Next we have brushability, noun from 1936. Ease of application with a brush, as in brushability of a paint. You could have a paint that is very brushable, or the brushability of the paint is either good or bad. I guess you could have a brush that has good brushability. Yeah, I guess so. I guess if you got a cheap brush, it might not be very brushable. Maybe until you break it in. Next word is brushback. One word, noun from 1954. A pitch intentionally thrown near the batter's head or body in baseball. Brush back. And then brush back, two words. is a transitive verb. Now we've got brush border, 2 words, noun from 1903. A stria or a stria of microvilli on the plasma membrane of an epithelial cell that is specialized for absorption. And then we have an example after epithelial cell. It says, as in a kidney tubule. A stria of microvilli on the plasma membrane in an epithelial cell, as in a kidney tubule, that is specialized for absorption. Brush border. Sorry, I think I need to go blow my nose after this episode. All right, next we've got brush cut. 2 words, noun from 1945. Synonym is crew cut. So that's a very short haircut. They also call it a brush cut. Don't know why. I guess the clippers just brush up against your head very closely. Next is brush discharge. 2 words, noun from 1849. A faintly luminous, relatively slow electrical discharge having no spark. Next is brushed with an ed, adjective from 1926. 1. Finished with a nap, as in a brushed fabric. That is not a nap where you go sleepy time. That is a different kind of nap that has to do with fabric. Number 2, polished but not shiny, as in brushed aluminum, or some people like to say aluminium. Next is brush fire, 1 word, adjective from 1954. This is related to the very first word from this episode, scrub vegetation. So brush fire, all 1 word, is involving mobilization only on a small and local scale. Actually, no, not this. It's the next one that has to do with the first word. As in brush fire, border wars. But then we have brush fire again, which is 2 words, noun from 1850. 1, a fire involving low-growing plants, as scrub and brush. Number 2, a minor conflict or crisis, as in putting out political brush fires. Next is brushland, 1 word, noun from 1853, an area covered with brush growth. Next we have brush off, 2 words with a hyphen, noun from 1941, a quietly curt or disdainful dismissal. I'm just going to brush you off because I feel disdainful towards you. Next we have brush stroke, 1 word, noun from 1879. The configuration given to paint by contact with the bristles of a brush. Also, the paint left on a surface by a single application of a brush or palette knife. And this is often used figuratively to describe the quality, especially of a narrative or description, as in a story told in broad brushstrokes. Just very generally, big brushstrokes, kind of, not a lot of details. Next we have brush up, 2 words, verb from circa 1600. Transitive is first. 1, to improve or polish as if by brushing. 2, to renew one's skill in, as in brush up your Spanish. I am brushing up on my English skills while reading this book. Now we've got intransitive, to refresh one's memory, renew one's skill, as in brush up on math. And brush up, 1 word, is a noun. Next is brushwood, 1 word, noun from circa 1613. 1, wood of small branches, especially when cut or broken. Number 2, a thicket of shrubs and small trees. Next we've got brushwork, 1 word, noun from 1868. Work done with a brush, as in painting, especially the characteristic work of an artist using a brush. And our last word is brushy, B-R-U-S-H-Y. We've got 2 forms. Adjective from 1567, covered with or abounding in brush or brushwood, as in brushy hills, also as in a brushy habitat. And then the second form of brushy is an adjective from 1665. Synonyms are shaggy and rough, as in a brushy mustache. So we had brush, 5 forms of that: brushability, brush back, brush border, brush cut, brush discharge, brushed, brush fire, brush land, brush off, brush stroke, brush up, brushwood, brushwork, and brushy. Well, I think I'm going to pick brushstroke as the word of the episode because it's all about the brushstrokes. When you look at a painting specifically, the painting, the final product of the painting is all about the brushstrokes. It's how detailed or not detailed you want to be, and that's just based on, the kind of brushstrokes you use, the way the brushstrokes are used, and that's what a painting is all about. It's all about the brushstrokes. I don't know. That's just what I thought of. So that is it. I'm going to end this episode. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. I somehow have a little friend with me today. This is Audrey the cat. She's joined me once, I think, before. I didn't even know she was in here. I'm in my bedroom. The door has been closed. I come in from blowing my nose and washing my hands, because that's what you got to do, and I come in and there's a cat in here. How did she get in here? I suspect my wife accidentally let her in earlier. Anyway, she'll probably come and go. So the first word is, oh, you know what? She's probably going to want to get out of here because there's food and litter box not in this room. You want to leave? All right, hold on. I bet she was sleeping under the bed while I recorded the last 2 episodes. So if you want to go back and listen to the last 2 episodes, I think those aired on October 26th and October 27th. In your brain, you can think, there is a cat under the bed sleeping while he's talking. All right, the first word is brusque. Brusque. Could also just be brusk. Adjective from 1651. 1. Markedly short and abrupt. Number 2. Blunt in manner or speech, often to the point of ungracious harshness. This book is not brusque. A synonym is bluff, Bluff. Brusquely is an adverb, and brusqueness is a noun. This is from French, brusque, or they probably say brusque, I don't know. From Italian, brusco. From Middle Latin, bruscus, which means butcher's broom. And then in parentheses after that, it says plant with bristly twigs. Butcher's broom. Next is brusquerie. It's brusque with an R-I-E at the end. It is a noun from 1752. Abruptness of manner. Next we have Brussels carpet. Capital B-R-U-S-S-E-L-S, and then the word carpet. Noun from 1799. A carpet made of colored worsted yarns, first fixed in a foundation web of strong linen thread, and then drawn up in loops to form the pattern. And this is from Brussels, Belgium. Next, we've got Brussels griffon. Brussels is the same. Second word is Griffon. Noun from 1904. Any of a breed of short-faced, compact, rough, or smooth-coated toy dogs of Belgian origin. Called also just Griffon. They got their own dogs. Next, we have Brussels lace. 2 words, noun from 1732. 1. Any of various fine needlepoint or bobbin laces with floral designs made originally in or near Brussels. Number 2. A machine-made net of hexagonal mesh. Brussels lace. And next we have Brussels sprout. Brussels sprout. Brussels is not capitalized for some reason here, but it is often capitalized, as this book tells me. This is a noun from 1796. 1 is plural. A plant of the mustard family that bears small edible green heads on its stem. And the scientific name is Brassica oleracea gemifera. And then number 2, any of the edible green heads borne on Brussels sprouts, and is usually used in plural. We have been actually eating a lot of Brussels sprouts recently. I was listening to a podcast recently, and somehow I had heard this information beforehand. I don't remember where. But Brussels sprouts have actually been bred over the last 10 or 20 years to taste better, to be less bitter than they used to be. So if when you were a kid and you did not like Brussels sprouts, you should give them another shot, because they have actually found it's a gene or something in them that makes it have that bitter taste. And so they found seeds of Brussels sprouts that had less of that chemical or gene or whatever it is, and then they were breeding them. You can go back to an older episode recently. We had the word breed, October 4th, I think, because I just listened to that this morning. And they bred them to be less bitter tasting. So go give some Brussels sprouts a try. Go bake them, fry them, cook them up however you want. I think we're actually going to have some tonight, actually. So that's a funny coincidence. Next, we have Brute, B-R-U-T. We had Brute a couple episodes ago, but it was spelled B-R-U-I-T. This one has no I. So it's blind. This is an adjective from 1891. It is talking about champagne, or champagne, and it means very dry, specifically being the driest made by the producer. Brute is also a noun. This is a French word, and it literally means rough, R-O-U-G-H. I'm sorry, I blew my nose, but it is still a little bit wet. I don't know, that's weird. So yeah, if you enjoy champagne or other sparkling things and you see the word brute on there, that means dry. So if you like the dry stuff, then you'll probably like it. I tend to not go that direction. Moving on to brutal. This is an adjective, and it is from the 15th century. Number one is archaic. Typical of beasts. Synonym is animal. Number two, befitting a brute, as 2A, grossly ruthless or unfeeling, as in a brutal slander. 2B, synonyms are cruel and cold-blooded, as in a brutal attack. 2C, synonyms are harsh and severe, as in brutal weather. 2D, unpleasantly accurate and incisive, as in the brutal truth. I think we all need to hear the brutal truth now and again. 2E, very bad or unpleasant, as in a brutal mistake. Brutally is an adverb. And we have some synonym information. Brutal, brutish, bestial, feral mean characteristic of an animal in nature, action, or instinct. Brutal applies to people, their acts, or their words, and suggests a lack of intelligence, feeling, or humanity, as in a senseless and brutal war. Brutish stresses likeness to an animal in low intelligence, in base appetites, and in behavior based on instinct, as in brutish stupidity. Bestial, B-E-S-T-I-A-L, suggests a state of degradation unworthy of humans and fit only for beasts, as in bestial depravity, or depravity. I think it's depravity. Feral, F-E-R-A-L, suggests the savagery or ferocity of wild animals, as in the struggle to survive unleashed their feral impulses. So that is brutal. Next we have brutalize with an S-E. This is the British variation of brutalize with a Z-E, which is our last word. But first, we have brutality. This is a noun from 1549. 1. The quality or state of being brutal. Number 2. A brutal act or course of action. And then finally, we have brutalize. B-R-U-T-A-L-I-Z-E. This is a verb. Looks like it's only transitive from circa 1704. 1. To make brutal, unfeeling, or inhuman, as in temperaments brutalized by poverty and disease. Number 2. To treat brutally, as in an accord not to brutalize prisoners of war. Brutalization is a noun. So we had brusque, brusquerie, Brussels carpet, Brussels griffin, Brussels lace, Brussels sprout, brute, brutal, brutalize, brutality, and brutalize. Let's see. I think I will pick... well, I kind of wanted to pick Brussels sprout as the word of the episode, but I can post a picture. I already talked about that. I'm going to eat some tonight. I think I'm going to pick brusquerie as the word of the episode. Brusquerie. I'm familiar with brusque, but putting it in that weird noun form was not something that I was really familiar with, and it's a fun word to spell and say. Brusquerie. It is abruptness of manner. So, that's all I got to say today. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary. If your name is Mary, thank you, Mary, very much for listening to this episode. And until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. We are at the end of page 159. First word is brute, B-R-U-T-E. We had 3 words all pronounced brute, all spelled different ways. This is the first form, adjective from the 15th century. 1, of or relating to beasts, as in the ways of the brute world. Number 2, we have the 1A definition for the word inanimate. It's like animate with an in, but it's not pronounced that way. Inanimate, not animated, not alive. Number 3, characteristic of an animal in quality, action, or instinct, as 3A. Synonyms are cruel and savage, as in brute violence. 3B, not working by reason, as in brute instinct. 4, purely physical, as in brute strength, also as in brute force. Number 5, unrelievedly harsh, as in brute facts, and also as in brute necessity. Let's see, this is from a Latin, brutus, or brutus, which means brutish and literally means heavy, akin to the Latin gravis, which means heavy, and there's more at the word grieve. Second form of brute, noun from 1611. 1, synonym is beast, and number 2, a brutal person. In The Princess Bride, the prince, the king, I think he's a prince at that point. Yeah, he's still a prince. He forms a group of people called the Brute Squad to, it doesn't matter why. He forms the Brute Squad, and so how can I explain this quickly? Anyway, I just like to say it because this Andre the Giant, Fezzik is his character. He's on the Brute Squad, and he'd go up to a building. I think it's Billy Crystal's character, and he says, "I'm going to call the Brute Squad." And Fezzik goes, "I'm on the Brute Squad." And he looks at him, and he says, "You are the Brute Squad," meaning he's so big and strong, he's just the whole Brute Squad. I always love that line. Moving on to brutish, adjective from 1534. 1, resembling, befitting, or typical of a brute or beast, as in lived a short and brutish life as a slave. 2A, strongly and grossly sensual. Grossly sensual. Those words don't usually go together in my brain. As in brutish gluttony. 2B, showing little intelligence or sensibility, as in a brutish lack of understanding. Synonym is just the word brutal. Brutishly is an adverb, and brutishness is a noun. Now we have bruxism, Bruxism, noun from 1932. The habit of unconsciously gritting or grinding the teeth, especially in situations of stress or during sleep. I think a lot of us probably do this. I think I might do a tiny bit of it when I sleep, but you gotta maybe a little bit of a little bit of clenching if I'm stressed. But if you do this, just try and be conscious of it and just try and relax those muscles. You don't want to clench your teeth. You don't want to grind them. It's not good. It's not good for your dental health. So this is an irregular form of the Greek word brishin, which means to gnash the teeth. And then plus E and, or plus the English suffix ism. That's that. Next we have Brynhild, capital Brynhild, noun from 1590. A Valkyrie who is waked from an enchanted sleep by Sigurd and later has him killed when he forgets her. Well, that's sad. Next we have bryology, Bryology, noun from 1856. 1. Moss life or biology. Moss, like the green stuff on the ground or the trees. Number 2, or also rocks. Number 2, a branch of botany that deals with the bryophytes, which we will learn about shortly. Bryological is an adjective, and bryologist is a noun, the one who is studying bryology. So this is from the Greek word bryon, Bryon, which means moss, akin to the Greek braein, which means to grow luxuriantly. That's a very short word for such a interesting definition, to grow luxuriantly, which definitely moss does that. Next we have Bryony, Bryoni. You people named Brian are probably like, whoa, this is cool. My name means moss. This is a noun from the 14th century. Any of a genus of tendril-bearing vines of the gourd family with large leaves and red or black fruit. And the genus name is Bryonia. Next we have Bryophyllum, Bryophyllum, noun from circa 1868. And we have the synonym calancho. I don't know how to say that. Kalanchoe. Kalanchoe. I don't know. Let's see. This is from the Greek word bryon and also the word phylon, Phyllon, which means leaf. So it's like moss and leaf, and there's more at the word blade. Next we have bryophyte, Bryophyte, noun from 1878. Any of a division of non-flowering plants comprising the mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. Bryophytic is an adjective. This is from bryon plus phyton, which means plant, akin to the Greek word phyene, which means to bring forth. And there's more at the word B-E. Next we have bryozoan, noun from circa 1864. Any of a phylum. Oh, by the way, in the last one, I think I said the division. That is Bryophyta. And then here with bryozoan, the phylum is Bryozoa. Can you keep this all straight? Because I sure can't. So anyway, any of a phylum of aquatic, mostly marine, invertebrate animals that reproduce by budding and usually form permanently attached branched or mossy colonies. Bryozoan is also an adjective. Next we have brythonic, capital Brythonic, brythonic. First form, adjective from 1884. Of, relating to, or characteristic of the division of the Celtic languages that include Welsh, Cornish, and Breton. Breton. Apologies if I pronounced it incorrectly. Brythonic. So now we have the second form of Brythonic. It is a noun from 1884. The Brythonic branch of the Celtic languages. And then it says to see the Indo-European languages table, which I'm very excited about. But we have to wait a while to get there. Now we have some abbreviations. We are now in the BS's, and our first abbreviation is just BS, both capitalized. Abbreviation for 1, Bachelor of Science, 2, Balance Sheet, 3, Bill of Sale, 4, Bishop Suffragan, 5, British Standard, and number 6, probably the one that most of you thought of, especially if you're an adult. It is often not capitalized, and it is sometimes vulgar. I mean, pretty much all the time is vulgar, right? And it just means bullshit. BS is bullshit. Also, all those other things I read. Next, we have BSA, all caps, abbreviation for Boy Scouts of America. Next is BSAE, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Engineering. 2. Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Engineering. Number 3. Bachelor of Science in Architectural Engineering. So you can have a BSAE in Aeronautics, Agriculture, and Architecture. Next we have BS Arch, capital B, capital S, capital A, RCH, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Architecture. Next is BSB, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Business. Next is BSc, the C is lowercase, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science. Next is all caps BSCE, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering. And finally, BSCH, the H is lowercase, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. So we had brute, brutish, bruxism, Brynhild, bryology, bryony, bryophyllum, bryophyte, bryozoan, brythonic, BS, BSA, BSAE, BS Arch, BSB, BSC, BSCE, BSCH, BSCH. I think I'll pick bruxism as the word of the episode because I think it is very important that we all be aware that we are possibly performing bruxism at times. So try and don't clench or grind your teeth, please and thank you. Please go rate and review this on your podcast platform. I guess some people call them podcatchers, although I think there's a whole specific thing called podcatcher. I would very much appreciate a review. If you can tell me how bad it is and give me 5 stars still. If you want to donate to the Patreon, you can do that, and after my expenses, I will pass the money along to other patrons or other Patreons. Let's see, that is all that stuff, and please share and subscribe and do those fun things, and just keep on listening and be learning the words and the languages, and be good to your fellow humans. And wear a mask. This has been Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. We are at the top of page 160, 160, 160. 160. How many different ways can we say this? The first word is B-school, capital B hyphen school. It is a noun from 1967, a school of business within a university, and this stands for business school. It's business school. Next we have, we have lots and lots of abbreviations here. Next is BSE, all caps, abbreviation for bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Bovine spongiform encephalopathy. I think I'm saying spongiform correctly, but bovine has to do with cows. Next, we have BSEC. The C is lowercase, or BSE Con, C-O-N, and those are all lowercase. This is an abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Economics. Next is BSED with a lowercase d, or it could also just be BSE again. Abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Education. Next is BSEE, all caps. Abbreviation for 1. Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. Very useful stuff. Number 2, Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education. How can we combine those? Elementary education in electrical engineering. We've got 8-year-olds learning electrical engineering. I want to see that happen. Next is BSET, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Engineering Technology. Next is BSFOR. The BSF are caps. This is an abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Forestry. We got to learn what to do with these forests in the proper way and don't tear them down unless they have to be, and do the clear cutting, clear burning, whatever that's called. We need more forests in this world. Next, we have BSI, all caps, abbreviation for British Standards Institution. Standards came out weird. Next, we have, well, this is a stupid abbreviation, BSKT, all lowercase, abbreviation for basket. They just took out the 2 vowels. It went from 6 letters to 4 letters. Silly, silly, silly. Next is BSL, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Linguistics. I should get one of them on this podcast to be a guest. Next is BSME, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Next is BSMT, all lowercase, abbreviation for basement. Again, they took out the vowels and they also took out the N. So it went from 8 letters to 4 letters. That one makes more sense than basket. Next is BSN, abbreviation for Bachelor of Science in Nursing. That is all caps. Next is BSW, all caps, abbreviation for Bachelor of Social Work. Okay, we still have a few, but this one is different. It is BT, it's a capital B, lowercase t, first form, noun from 1971, a preparation of a bacterium, often modified by genetic engineering for use as a biopesticide against insects and especially Lepidopteran larvae. And then also the bacterium itself is called BT. So the bacterium is, the scientific name is Bacillus thuringiensis. That's where we get the BT. The B in bacillus is capitalized. And, yep, so that's the thing. And then we have BT again. This is the second form. It is an abbreviation for baronet. Next, we have another abbreviation, BTRY, all lowercase, and it's an abbreviation for battery. AA batteries, AAA batteries, doesn't matter. You can abbreviate it to BTRY. Next, we have BTU with a capital B. Abbreviation, no, it's not technically. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's a noun from 1899, and it's the synonym is British Thermal Unit. Next, we have BTW, all caps. I think most of us know this one. It is an abbreviation for by the way. I use this one a lot when I'm texting with people. By the way, I should tell you something that I'm going to tell you now. Next, we have BU, all lowercase, abbreviation for 1, bureau, and 2, bushel. I got a bushel of bureaus. Next is BU with a capital B. This is an abbreviation for, I think it's pronounced butyl, BUTYL. I don't think it's butyl. I think it's butyl. But we will probably be seeing that soon. Next is bub, B-U-B, noun from 1839. Synonyms are fellow and buddy. And this is used in informal address, as in, come on, bub, get moving. So this says it is probably short for bubby, B-U-B-B-Y, or I think it's bubby, not bubby, which is a little boy. Little boy is a bubby, and it became bub. When I was a kid, this is such a stupid story, but I know my dad found it very funny and has told the story many times. So, of course, I'm going to tell you now. Why not? I think it was probably 10 years old or something. We had just bought a Christmas tree, and we were coming home, and we were driving down the alley, and I think a car was coming out of their garage, and they were stopping us, and I said something like, hey, get out of our way. We got a Christmas tree here, bub. So that's just what I think of whenever I think of the word bub, because that's not a word that most people use in normal context. I don't use it. I don't know why I said it. It was just a thing that came out of my mouth. Okay, now we have bubba with a capital B. This is a noun from 1979. It is often disparaging, so don't use this unless you know the person wants to be called Bubba. But it is a synonym for redneck. And it is probably from Bubba, which is a stereotypical nickname of Southern white males. I always think of Bubba Gump Shrimp from Forrest Gump when I think of Bubba. and that great scene where he's just listing off all the different kinds of shrimp. Next is bubble. B-U-B-B-L-E. First form, noun from the 14th century. 1. A small globule, typically hollow and light, as 1A, a small body of gas within a liquid. A bubble of gas. 1B, a thin film of liquid inflated with air or gas. 1C, a globule in a transparent solid. 1D, something as a plastic or inflatable structure that is hemispherical or semi-cylindrical. 2A, something that lacks firmness, solidity, or reality. That's interesting. 2B, a delusive scheme. Delusive scheme. Number 3, a sound like that of bubbling. Number 4, synonym is magnetic bubble. What is a magnetic bubble? Ooh, that sounds fascinating. Number 5, a state of booming economic activity, as in a stock market, that often ends in a sudden collapse. Well, we don't need to talk about this too much, but for many of us, we are very, very, very aware of the bubble that exploded in the 2006-2008 timeframe. And I guess it was really 2008, but I think it started before that, obviously. That was pretty bad economically. I actually was one of the many, many, many people who got hit by that because I bought my place at the peak in 2006 and paid more money for it than I should have, and then everything went down, and the value went way, way, way down. So that was fun. Number 6, the condition of being at risk of exclusion or replacement, as from a tournament. And that is usually used in the phrase on the bubble, as in teams still on the bubble for the playoffs. Every year at Christmas time, well, probably not this year, my family gets together and we play running charades, which is a very fun game. Can't remember if I've talked about this, but we have 2 teams, and it's a game of speed, and so you got to be ready to go. And so I always make sure that the next person in line is, I say, you're on the bubble, you're next, because they got to jump up and get ready to go. So I use that one at least once a year. Next we have, I got to figure out, okay, I'm ending this there. Now we have the second form of bubble. It is a verb from the 15th century. First are intransitive. 1A, to form or produce bubbles. 1B, to rise in or as if in bubbles, and that is usually used with the word up. Bubble up. Number 2, to flow with a gurgling sound, as in a brook bubbling over rocks. 3A, to become lively or effervescent, as in bubbling with good humor. 3B, to become lively, to speak in a lively and fluent manner. Now we have transitive. 1, to utter as words effervescently. How do you speak effervescently? To utter as words effervescently. That's what happened there. I don't know what that means. How do you utter effervescently? And number 2, to cause to bubble. Next we have bubble and squeak. Bubble and squeak, 3 words, noun from circa 1785. A British dish consisting of usually leftover potatoes, greens, as cabbage, and sometimes meat fried together. They call it a bubble and squeak. Well, that's probably because the way that the food cooks, it's bubbling and squeaking. That's the only thing I can think of. What a weird name for a dish. And our last is bubble chamber, 2 words, noun from 1953. A chamber of superheated liquid in which the path of an ionizing particle is made visible by a string of vapor bubbles. So we had, this is a lot of abbreviations, B-School, BSE, BSEC, BSED, BSEE, BSET, BS4, BSI, Biscuit, BSL, BSME, Bismunt, BSN, BSW, BT, Bitry, BTU, BTW, BU, Bub, Bubba, Bubble, Bubble and Squeak, bubble chamber. Oh boy, what are we going to do here? I'm going to pick Bubble and Squeak as the word of the episode because I thought that was a really, really funny name for a dish. I also liked Bub. Thank you very much for listening to this weird episode. I'm going to record another one. This has been Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. This is the podcast where, I'm looking at my date thing, the little Post-its, and today is Halloween. This is the best day of the year. Happy Halloween to everybody who celebrates it and also to everybody who doesn't celebrate it. Go be safe and smart, especially this year. Don't be throwing the eggs and, so everybody's going to be wearing masks this year if they're trick-or-treating at all. So I think we are actually going to be doing some physical distancing trick-or-treating with another family or a family who has some kids who want to come up to our neighborhood. Because there is more physical space to actually distance in our neighborhood. We are very lucky in that. And I was thinking, well, I have to wear a mask, obviously, but I should do something creative and clever. So who knows what I will have come up with by the time this episode airs. But it's going to be interesting to see what people do. I wonder how many people are going to be dressed up as the coronavirus or other things that are happening on in this world right now. Okay, let's have a very fun, scary Halloween episode. The first word is bubblegum. It's just one word, adjective from 1969. Appealing to our characteristic of preteens or adolescence. That is not what I expected it to say. As in bubblegum fashions. There's also bubblegum pop, things like that. So that is bubblegum with one word, or as spelled as one word. Now we have bubblegum, which is two words. This is a noun from 1937. 1, a chewing gum that can be blown into large bubbles. I don't think all chewing gum can be blown into large bubbles, or even small bubbles. Maybe some are better. What makes a chewing gum be able to be blown into bubbles? What is happening scientifically, chemically, molecularly that makes it easier to blow into bubbles? Because I swear I've had some gum that you just can't really blow bubbles so well. But some you can make real good bubbles. All right. Number 2 is actually usually spelled as one word. This is rock music having simple, repetitive phrasings and intended especially for young teenagers. Next is bubblehead. It's not bobblehead, it's bubblehead. One word, noun from 1949. A foolish or stupid person. Bubbleheaded is an adjective. Next we have bubble memory. Two words, noun from 1969. A computer memory that uses magnetic bubbles to store information. So first of all, I think it's interesting that this one was coined in the same year that bubblegum, the first word of the episode, as they were both coined in that same year. But also, what is magnetic bubble? Oh, we learned about that in the last episode, didn't we? For bubble, the number 4 definition, the synonym was magnetic bubble. So what is a magnetic bubble? Sounds fascinating. So that is bubble memory. Next is bubbler. It is a noun from 1914. 1, a drinking fountain from which a stream of water bubbles upward. And then number 2, one that bubbles. Yeah, I think in England and other areas similar to that, they say bubbler instead of drinking fountain. There could even be parts of America where they do the same thing. I never called it that, though. I just called it a drinking fountain. Let's see. Now we have bubble wrap. 2 words. First letter is capitalized. This is a trademark it is a trademark, and it is used for packing material composed of sheets of plastic with bubbles of entrapped gases. What gases are entrapped in there? When we pop the bubbles, are we exposing ourselves to gases that we shouldn't be exposing ourselves to? That doesn't make sense. It's probably just oxygen, just regular air. I mean, who doesn't know about bubble wrap? There are probably people who don't like the pop of the bubble wrap, especially dogs. Don't pop your bubble wrap around people and animals who don't like it, but that's a satisfying thing, popping some bubble wrap. Wish I had some now. I don't do it as much as I used to when I was a kid. Now we have bubbly, Bubly, first form, adjective from 1599, 1, full of bubbles. Synonym is effervescent, as in a bubbly bottle of pop. You gotta be careful when you open up something bubbly. Let it chill. Number 2, full of or showing good spirits. Synonyms are lively and effusive. And number 3, resembling a bubble, as in a bubbly dome. I just saw a bubbly dome 2 days ago. We were driving around. We were in a town. There was a restaurant or bar or something that had a lot of outdoor seating, and they were just mostly like tables and stuff. But then they had this plastic, like geodesic dome that was probably 5 feet tall, I think. And I was like, that's interesting. And I think, it's just for if it starts raining, 2 people can probably sit in that thing. They just had one of them, so only 1 or 2 people get to hang out in the dome, the bubbly dome. Now we have the second form of bubbly. It is a noun from 1920, and we have the number 1 definition for the word champagne, or you can also say champagne. Next is bubby. We took off the L, bubby, noun from 1675. It is sometimes vulgar. Am I saying this correct? I think it's bubby. It is sometimes vulgar, and we just have the number 1 definition for the word breast. I did not know. I don't think I've ever heard of people calling breasts bubbies, but I guess it sort of makes sense. Why? I feel like I should have heard this, but I guess I haven't. Moving on to bupkis. You can spell it Bubkes. You could also spell it Bupkes, or you could also spell it Bupkus. So this is, what does it say? It's a noun from 1937. The least amount. That's the least amount, bupkis. Synonym is beans, as in, won't win bupkis this year. And that is a quote from Ivan Mazel. And then, also, the synonym nothing. And a quote, or a example, received bupkis for their efforts. Well, they put some effort into it, so they should receive something, right? This is from Yiddish. It is probably short for the word kozebupkis, which literally means, this is good. It literally means goat droppings. The droppings from a goat. So that is the first part of the etymology. Then it is, kozebupkis is the plural of bobka or babka, which is the diminutive of bub or bob, which means bean. So that's where you get the bean thing. That is of Slavic origin, akin to the Polish bob, which means bean. So whenever you say bupkis, you're talking about beans. Next we have bubo or bubo. It is spelled B-U-B-O. Bubo, bubo. Noun from the 14th century. An inflammatory swelling of a lymph gland, especially in the groin. This is terrible. And then bubonic or bubonic is an adjective. So I wonder if this is what happens when the bubonic plague happened, which just happens to be our next word, bubonic plague, 2 words, noun from 1885. Plague caused by a bacterium and characterized especially by the formation of buboes. Yes, you get the buboes when you get the bubonic plague. The bacterium scientific name is Yersinia pestis. Pestis, P-E-S-T-I-S. This sounds pretty terrible, and I'm glad that we don't have the bubonic plague. We have a different thing happening, but we don't have the bubonic plague. Next is buckle. It is not the buckle that you use to put your seatbelt on or put a belt around your waist. It is spelled B-U-C-C-A-L. B-U-C-C-A-L. Buckle. Adjective from 1720. 1. Of relating to near involving or supplying a cheek, as in the buccal surface of a tooth. Also, so that would be the surface of the tooth that's on the cheek side. And then also is in the buccal branch of the fascial nerve. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, buccal. Tell me if I didn't. And number 2, of relating to, involving, or lying in the mouth, as in the buccal cavity. And buccally is an adverb. And this is just a Latin word, bucca or bucca, which means cheek. There you go. Next we have buccaneer. I wonder if this is connected to cheeks at all as well. This is a noun from 1686. 1. Any of the freebooters preying on Spanish ships and settlements, especially in 17th century West Indies. And then broadly, we have the synonym pirate. Number 2, an unscrupulous adventurer, especially in politics or business. Buccaneer is an intransitive verb, and buccaneerish is an adjective. You're being very buccaneerish today. So this is from the French word boucanier, I think that might be how it's pronounced, which is a woodsman or a pirate in the 17th century West Indies. It is also from boucaner, which means to smoke meat. That's interesting. From boucan, which means wooden frame for smoking meat. Okay. And then it's also from the Tupi word. Oh, how do you say this? MOKA question mark E or MBOKA question mark E. The question mark, or it's part of a question mark, must be some sort of verbal thing that you do with your mouth. So I don't know how to say that. Mokai, which is it's a causative marker from the K, which means to be roasted. So it's all about cooking meat. So somehow we went to cooking meat to being a pirate. They must cook a lot of meat. I don't know. Interesting. Okay, moving on to buccinator. 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 Noun from 1615. A thin, broad muscle forming the wall of the cheek. The thin, broad muscle forming the wall of the cheek. Well, I am using this buccinator muscle to speak to you because my cheeks are moving around. This is from the Latin buccinator, something like that, which means trumpeter. From buccanare, which means to sound on the trumpet. From buccina, I think this is all Latin, which means trumpet. And from bove or bos, which means cow, plus canere, which means to sing or play. So, what? You're combining cow and singing, and you get trumpet. Do they think that when cows sing, they sound like trumpets? There is more at the synonyms cow and chant. Wow, interesting. Buccinator. That is the cheek. That is the muscle you use in your cheek to blow a trumpet. I don't know. Moving on to our very last word for this episode, it is buck, B-U-C-K, first form noun from before the 12th century. 1 is a male animal, especially a male deer or antelope. 2, a male human being, synonym is man. 2b, a dashing fellow, synonym is dandy. Number 3, synonym is antelope, or as I now like to say, antelope or antelope. 4a, synonym is buckskin, also an article as a shoe made of buckskin. 4b1, we have the 3b definition for the word dollar. 4b2, a sum of money especially to be gained, as in make a quick buck. Also the synonym money, and that is usually used in plural. I got me some bucks. Number 5 is 5. Let's see, we have 5a and 5b, and then there's separate etymology for number 5. So 5a says a supporting rack or frame, and then 5b, a short, thick, leather-covered block for gymnastic vaulting. And that is short for sawbuck, which is a sawhorse. So the sawhorse, sawbuck, shortened it just to buck. And then the etymology for the whole thing is from Old English buka, which means stag, or he-goat. It is akin to the Old High German bok, which means he-goat, and from Middle Irish bok, B-O-C-C. So today we had bubblegum, bubblehead, bubble memory, bubbler, bubble wrap, bubbly, bubby, bupkiss, bubo, bubonic plague, buckle, buccaneer, buccinator, and buck. Lots of good ones. I'm going to pick bupkiss because with this podcast, you get bupkiss. This has been Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. We are starting with the second form of buck, and there are 6 of them total. So, first of all, happy November. I also hope you had a very good Halloween last night, if that is what you celebrate. I also think we should all be celebrating the Dias de los Muertos. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And if you have not seen the Pixar movie, oh boy, why am I blanking on the name? You know what it is. Coco. If you have not seen that, please go see it. It is very, very good. And then, of course, I'm sure there are other similar holidays all over the world, so I hope you are celebrating them. Okay, the first word is buck, transitive verb from 1750. Number 1A is archaic, and we have the synonym. It's the first form of the word butt, B-U-T-T, butt and buck. 1B, synonyms are oppose and resist, as in bucking the system. 2, to throw as a rider by bucking. So the horse has a rider, and the horse bucks, and then they buck, and the rider gets bucked off. 3, to charge into as a headwind. 4A, to pass especially from one person to another. 4B, to move or load as heavy objects, especially with mechanical equipment. Now we've got intransitive. Number 1 is of a horse or a mule, to spring into the air with the back arched. We've all seen horses bucking. It's quite a sight. Number 2, to charge against something. 3A, to move or react jerkily. 3B, to refuse assent. Synonym is balk, B-A-L-K. Number 4, to strive for advancement, sometimes without regard to ethical behavior, as in bucking for a promotion. Bucker is a noun. Now we've got the third form of buck. It is a noun from circa 1877, an act or instance of bucking. Fourth form of bork, whoa, that's not what I meant to say. That happened because the first word in the etymology is short, and I was saying buck, and it came out like bort. Anyway, it's the fourth form of buck, which is a noun from 1865. 1, an object formerly used in poker to mark the next player to deal. Broadly, a token used as a mark or reminder. Number 2, synonym is responsibility, and this is used especially in the phrases pass the buck and the buck stops here. And this is short for the earlier buckhorn knife. Not sure. Let's see, buckhorn knife. Is that in this book? Buckhorn, buck. I'm not seeing it. So maybe they used a buckhorn knife to designate who was the next player in poker, and then it got short to buck. That makes sense, I think. I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, fifth form of buck is an adjective from 1918 of the lowest grade within a military category, as in a buck private. And the sixth form of buck is an adverb from 1928. Synonyms are stark and completely, as in buck naked. Yeah, this one is confusing because a lot of people think it's butt naked, which is funny because we went back to the first word of the episode and that was the 1A definition, butt and buck. But yes, technically I think the phrase is buck naked. Not completely sure why. The etymology says the origin is unknown, so we don't know where this came from. We're going to move on to buck and wing, 3 words with hyphens. noun from 1895. A solo tap dance with sharp foot accents, springs, leg flings, and heel clicks. Look at those legs fling. That is a buck and wing. Next is buckaroo. It is a noun from 1827. Number one, the synonym is cowboy. It's a buckaroo. And number two, the synonym is bronco buster. And let's see. Let's look at the etymology. It is probably by folk etymology from the Spanish vaquero, which is from vaca or baca, which means cow, from the Latin vaca, which means vaccine. Yes, I do remember hearing this actually, that we get the word vaccine from the word for cow, because that's where it sort of came from. And it became buckaroo because they deal with cows and stuff. Next is buck bean. One word, noun from 1578. A perennial herbaceous plant, but growing in bogs and having racemes of white or pinkish flowers. Scientific name is Menianthes trifoliata, and that is of the family Menianthiaceae. Next is buckboard. It is a noun from 1839. A four-wheeled vehicle with a floor made of long, springy boards. We have a picture of this buckboard. Maybe I will post a picture on the Instagram. But I will say real quick, the etymology says it is from the English word buck, which is the body of a wagon, plus the word board. I didn't know the buck was a body of a wagon. Did we read that earlier? I don't remember. So the buckboard, it basically looks like a very weird car. It's got four giant wheels, and then there's a base, that attaches all of them together, and then in the middle of it is just this exposed chair with no arms. It looks like there might be some foot pedals. There might be enough space for two people in this chair. It's hard to tell. But yeah, it looks like a sort of a fun thing to drive around in. It's a buckboard. Next is bucket. First form, it is a noun from the 13th century. 1. A typically cylindrical vessel for catching, holding, or carrying liquids or solids. 2. Something resembling a bucket, as 2a. The scoop of an excavating machine. 2b. One of the receptacles on the rim of a water wheel. 2c. One of the cups of an endless belt conveyor. Lots of different kinds of buckets in the world. 2d. One of the vanes of a turbine rotor. Number 3. Synonym is bucketful. 4. Synonym is bucket seat. And 5. Synonym is the 3B definition for the word basket. This is from Anglo-French, bucket with no C, from Old English, buck, B-U-C, which means pitcher or belly, akin to the Old High German buh, B-U-H, which means belly. Now we have the second form of bucket. It is a verb from 1621. First is transitive. 1. To draw or lift in buckets. Number 2 is British. First we have 2a, to ride a horse hard. So to ride hard. And then an example is a horse. And I guess that must come from the way that horses buck. But bucket, you ride a horse so hard that it's bucking. And that's where, I don't know. 2b, to drive hurriedly or roughly. Number 3, to deal with in a bucket shop. What's a bucket shop? Where you go buy your buckets? No. To deal with in a bucket shop. No, don't know what that is. And now we have the intransitive definitions. 1, synonyms are hustle and hurry. 2a, to move about haphazardly or irresponsibly. And 2b, to move roughly or jerkily. You bucket about. And now we have bucket brigade, 2 words, noun from 1899. A chain of persons acting to put out a fire by passing buckets of water from hand to hand. It's the bucket brigade. We also call this a fireman's line, depending on the situation, I guess. Next is bucket full, noun from circa 1563. As much as a bucket will hold, and broadly a large quantity. Next we have bucket list. 2 words, noun from 2006. Wow. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense now that I think about it. A list of things that one has not done before but wants to do before dying. And this is from the phrase kick the bucket, which means to die. Yes, this came from, there was the movie The Bucket List. And after that movie, it became a phrase. I've got that on my bucket list. I don't think anybody really had used that phrase beforehand. I feel like I would have heard it. But then after that movie, everybody started using it. What's on your bucket list? Why don't you call my Google Voice number or send me an email or send me a message? All the information is in the episode description. What is on my bucket list? Too many things to think about. Lastly, we have bucket seat. 2 words, noun from 1908. A low, separate seat for one person, as in an automobile or an airplane. I still don't know why they call them bucket seats. I guess they used it because back in the day before, it was just like in a car, it was just a bench where everybody sat together. But then they got individual seats and they called them bucket seats. Again, still not really sure why, but that's what happened. So we had buck, buck and wing, buckaroo, buck bean, buckboard, bucket, bucket brigade, bucketful, bucket list, and bucket seat. I think I'm going to pick bucket list as the word of the episode because, okay, we're going to get a little bit depressing, I guess, but it's a phrase that has to do with dying, but there's a positive note too. So here's the thing. You never know when you're going to die. You could die today. You could die in 100 years. You don't know. And I think that it's really important to, as much as you can, live every day like you could die. And that's a very cliche phrase, but I think there's definitely some truth to it. You can't always do it. It's not always possible, but in any small way, I think you should try and live that way. Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks has a great phrase, which I think is sort of along the same lines, which is something like, every day give yourself a little present. You need something. Every day you need something to give it some meaning, I think, whatever that is. And if there are things that you want to do, you should try and do them. You should make choices that lead your life to be able to do those things, because we may have one life to live. We may not have one life to live, but even if we get reincarnated, you're not going to remember the previous life. So in all senses, basically, you've got this one life, and you should live it to the best of your ability to make yourself as happy as possible, and ideally bring happiness to other people as well, because that will just bring happiness to you as well. So that's what I think, and I think you should have a bucket list, and I think you should do the things on the bucket list. I have been able to travel a lot, but I still want to do a lot more traveling. That's not something that's going to happen for a while, given our current climate in this world. But I'm also trying to, I want to live my life. I want to do things that are fun and experience the world out there, and talk to people and see things that are out there that I don't get to normally experience, and not be stuck in this one little bubble, to use a word from a previous episode. So that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel, but I do strongly suggest that you make a bucket list and start checking things off if you can. That's what I got to say. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. Thank you for turning on this podcast. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you are sharing and rating and reviewing and the things that I say. Yes, go, please, just enjoy it. I also really hope this is educational. If this has had any sort of positive effect on you, please let me know. Definitely want that in a review, a rating and a review, but also just a message would be fine. I'd love to hear what you got to say about it. And if it's had a negative effect on you, I don't want to hear about that. Just keep me ignorant on those facts, please and thank you. So the first word is bucket shop. This is the last section of page 160. Bucket shop is 2 words, noun from 1875. 1. A saloon in which liquor was formerly sold from or dispensed in open containers as buckets or pitchers, which sounds very strange to me, but 150 years ago, I guess that was fairly common. You just scoop out the liquor that you want from the bucket, and that's why they call it a bucket shop. Crazy. 2A. Where am I? A gambling establishment that formerly used market fluctuations, as in securities or commodities, as a basis for gaming. 2B. A dishonest brokerage firm, especially one that formerly failed to execute customers' margin orders in expectation of making a profit from market fluctuations adverse to the customer's interests. I don't know what I just read. So we're going to move on to Buckeye. 1 word, noun from 1763. 1. Any of various shrubs or trees of the horse chestnut family, also the large nut-like seed of such a shrub or tree. And the genus name is Aesculus. 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 And number 2 is capitalized, a native or resident of Ohio, and that is used as a nickname. I was aware that they called themselves Buckeyes, and the mascot, I think at Ohio University, is that right, is the Buckeye. But I'm assuming that they have these shrubs or trees there, but I don't know. Next is buck fever, 2 words, noun from 1841. Nervous excitement of an inexperienced hunter at the sight of game. They get a fever when they see the buck. Next is buckle, B-U-C-K-L-E. It is the first form. A couple episodes ago, we had another word that was pronounced buckle, and I'm checking the pronunciation guide, and it does look like it's exactly the same. So yeah, they're both pronounced buckle. Noun from the 14th century. 1. A fastening for 2 loose ends that is attached to one and holds the other by a catch. 2. An ornamental device that suggests a buckle. 3 is archaic, a crisp curl. What is that? Is that like a curl in your hair? A crisp curl? They call it a buckle? So this is from Middle English, buckle, which means a boss of a shield or buckle, from the Latin bucula, which is a diminutive of bucca, which means cheek. So we still have the same etymology. They both have to do with cheeks, but that seems weird to me still, at least for this one. Second form of buckle, it is a verb from the 14th century. 1. To fasten with a buckle. 2. To prepare with vigor. 3. To cause to bend, give way, or crumple. Those were the transitive definitions. Now we've got intransitive. 1. To become fastened with a buckle. 2. To apply oneself with vigor. Usually used with the word down, as in buckle down to the job. Gotta buckle down, get some work done. Number 3, to bend or move, usually under the influence of some external agency, as in wheat buckling in the wind. 4, synonym is collapse, as in the props buckled under the strain. Yeah. Make sure that the legs of things are securely fastened and strong because you don't want things falling over from buckling. 5, to give way. Synonym is yield, as in he buckled under pressure. Third form of buckle, it is a noun from circa 1876. 1, a product of buckling. Synonyms are bend and fold. 2, a coffee cake, baked with berries and a crumbly topping, as in blueberry buckle. Where did this name come from? Why did they call that a buckle? Maybe, I don't know. Interesting. Now we have the word buckler. We added an R to buckle. This is the first form. It is a noun from the 13th century. 1a, a small round shield held by a handle at arm's length. 1b, a shield worn on the left arm. Number 2, one that shields and protects. Next is the second form of buckler. It is a transitive verb from 1590, to shield or defend with a buckler. Next is buckle up. 2 words, intransitive verb from 1971, to fasten one's seatbelt. Seems kind of weird that this one got its own entry, but okay. Next, we have a very fun, interesting word. It looks like it is literally one word, and it is pronounced, I think, Buckminster Fullerene. Buckminster Fullerene. So we have the word buck, and then the word minster, M-I-N-S-T-E-R, and then fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R, and then "ene," the suffix "ene," E-N-E, Buckminster Fullerene. Noun from 1985, a spherical fullerene, C60, so that's 60 carbon atoms together, C60, that is an extremely stable form of pure carbon, consists of interconnected pentagons and hexagons suggestive of the geometry of a geodesic dome, and is believed to be a major constituent of soot, like ash. I think also soccer balls are made up of pentagons and hexagons. Interesting. So this is from, what is the R abbreviation? Yes, R. R. Well, it's not in here. We have RC, but there's no R, because it says R in the etymology, and then it says Buckminster Fuller. Is that somebody's name? Buckminster Fuller? Okay, I'm gonna have to look this one up. But anyway, that's a molecule thing. Next is bucko, B-U-C-K-O, noun from 1883. 1, a person who is domineering and bullying. Synonym is swaggerer. Number 2 is chiefly Irish, young fellow. Synonym is lad. Next we have buck passer. 2 words, noun from 1920. A person who habitually passes the buck. And then if we go to the previous episode, we know that buck is has to do with your responsibility. Responsibility used in the phrases pass the buck or buck stops here. So yes, if you pass the buck, you are giving the responsibility from one person to another. If you are a kid and you have chores to do and you have your sibling do the chores that you're supposed to do, you are passing the buck. I guess you could maybe use the phrase there. But don't do that. Take some responsibility. Be a good human being. Buck passing is a noun. Next we have buckram, B-U-C-K-R-A-M. I don't think it's buckram. I think it's buckram. First form, noun from the 15th century. 1, a stiff, finished, heavily sized fabric of cotton or linen used for interlinings in garments, for stiffening in millinery, and in bookbinding. Number 2 is archaic. Synonyms are stiffness and rigidity. I can't speak today because my mouth is feeling very buckram and stiff. I didn't do my warm-ups. Okay, good for that. This is from ultimately from Bokhara, which is Bukhara, Uzbekistan. So maybe that's where they get this cotton or linen from. Next is the second form of buckram. It is an adjective from circa 1589, suggesting buckram, especially in stiffness. Next is the third form of buckram, transitive verb from 1783. 1, to give strength or stiffness to, as with buckram. And the number 2 is archaic, to make pretentious. I'm sorry, I'm very tired. I have to yawn. To make pretentious. Okay, interesting. Next is, the door opened. Next is Buck Rogers. 2 words, capital B, capital R, adjective from 1941, marked by futuristic and high-tech qualities. It is suggestive of science fiction. This is from Buck Rogers, who was a hero of science fiction comic strip created by Phil Nolan in 1941. And then lastly, we have Bucks, capital Bucks, abbreviation for Buckinghamshire, which I'm guessing is a place in England, maybe? So we had Bucket Shop, Buckeye, Buck Fever, Buckle, Buckler, Buckle Up, Buckminster Fullerene, Bucko, Buck Passer, Buckram, Buck Rogers, and Bucks. I think I'm going to pick Bucket Shop as the word of the episode because I just thought it was very silly that there was, they used to have places, saloons, where you could just get your alcohol in a bucket or a pitcher. I mean, I guess we still have that. You could get a pitcher, but I guess it does make sense actually now that I think about it. All right, I'm going to end this episode. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to another wonderful episode of The Dictionary. This is the podcast where somebody reads the dictionary. That somebody is me, and I really like doing this because every time I sit down to record, it's like a fun little adventure. What words are we going to talk about? What are we going to learn? What random thoughts and jokes and stupid comments are going to come to my head? And then I say them. And yeah, so other than reading the list of words beforehand, which I didn't do this time, so let's see what happens. Other than that, it's a fun adventure. I'm going on an adventure. Okay, the first word is bucksaw, Bucksaw, noun from 1856. A saw set in a usually H-shaped frame for sawing wood. Next is buckshee, Buckshee. It is a noun from circa 1760. Number 1 is British, so is number 2. Something extra obtained free. Ooh, don't you love those? A buckshee. And then especially extra rations. Well, who do you know who would give you extra rations? So number 2 is British. Synonyms are windfall and gratuity. This is from the Hindi word bakshish or bakshis, from the Urdu word bakshish, from the Persian word bakshish. They're all spelled slightly differently. And there's more at the word bakshish, Baksheesh. So I guess we already talked about that one. Next we have buckshot. One word, first form, noun from 1775. Lead shot that is from 24 to 33 inch, about 6.1 to 8.4 milliliters. Whoa, not milliliters. That's liquid. Millimeters in diameter. I thought that those things were measured in millimeters, but now it's saying that's a 0.24. The 0.33 is inches. Or maybe, that's different. Those are small. They're like smaller than marbles, I think. Now we have the second form of buckshot. This is an adjective from 1941, and we have the synonym scattershot. All the buckshots come out of the shotgun, and it goes in a scatter plot graph, and the thing that it hits is no more. Next we have buckskin, one word, noun from the 14th century. 1A, the skin of a buck. Well, that was pretty obvious. 1B, a soft, pliable, usually suede finished leather. 2A is plural, buckskin breeches or buckskin breeches. 2B is archaic, a person dressed in buckskin, especially an early American backwoodsman. Number 3, a horse of a light yellowish dun color with black mane and tail. It sounds like a very nice looking horse. Next we have buckskinned, adjective from 1829, dressed in buckskin. Next we have bucktail. I just realized almost all of these start with the word buck. Bucktail is a noun from 1911. I want to sing that song, da-da-da-da-da, bucktails, but that's not it. An angler's lure made typically of hairs from the tail of a deer. Because fish like to jump at the tail of a deer to eat some food? No. Why? Who thought of this? Next we have buckthorn, one word, noun from 1578. 1, any of a genus long parentheses, of often thorny trees or shrubs, some of which yield purgatives or pigments. The genus name is Rhamnus, Rhamnus, of the family Rhamnaceae, which is the buckthorn family. Rhamnus sounds like some Egyptian god. Now we have number 2, a shrub or small tree of the Sapodilla family of the southern U.S. That could also be Sapodilla. And then the scientific name is Bumelia lycoides, something. Next is bucktooth, noun from 1753, a large protruding front tooth. And of course, people usually have two. Buck-toothed is an adjective. I always felt bad. I still feel bad for people who sort of have this bucktooth situation because they probably feel like they look funny. I don't think they look funny, and I think people probably make fun of them, but that's not right, especially kids. Kids are mean. Don't make fun of people. And so, yeah, I always felt bad for people like that just because of that situation. But I don't know. I think I like them. They're fun. Because it's different. Different is good. Next, we have buck up, 2 words, verb from 1844. Intransitive is first, to become encouraged, or brace up. And then the transitive, number 1, synonyms are improve and smarten. Number 2, to raise the morale of. Next, we have buckwheat, noun from 1548. 1, any of a genus of Eurasian herbs with alternate leaves, clusters of, we're getting into these fun words, clusters of apetalous pinkish white flowers and triangular seeds, especially either of 2 plants cultivated for their edible seeds. The genus name is Phagopyrum of the family Paleognaceae, which is the buckwheat family, and the 2 plants, the scientific names are Phagopyrum esculentum and Phagopyrum tartaricum. I hope some of you come just for the possibility that I'm going to have to read those words. Number 2, the seed of a buckwheat used as a cereal grain. This comes from Dutch and other things, and I think that, yeah, sure. Next, we have buckyball, 1 word, noun from 1985, a molecule of Buckminster fullerene. Ooh, we had that in the last episode. Buckminster fullerene. And then broadly, we have the synonym fullerene. That's a buckyball. Next, we have bucky tube, 1 word, noun from 1991, a nanotube composed of pure carbon with a molecular arrangement similar to that of fullerene. And this is combining buckyball and the word tube because it is a nanotube. Next, we have bucolic, bucolic. This is an adjective from circa 1609. 1, of or relating to shepherds or herdsmen. And a synonym is pastoral. It's like springtime and a meadow and the dandelion things are flying all over the place. That's what I think of when I think of pastoral. And that symphony piece that I can't think of the name of. It's something like Pastoral Number 4. Then 2A, relating to or typical of rural life. 2B, synonym is idyllic, idyllic. That's what I think of when I think of bucolic. And then bucolically is an adverb. This is from Latin bucolicus, from Greek bucolikos, from bukolos, which means cow herd, from bus, which means head of cattle, plus kolos, which is akin to the Latin colere, which means to cultivate. And there is more at the word cow or wheel. Yes, as long as there's a cow and a wheel, it is a very idyllic place. Next and last word for this episode is bud, B-U-D, first form. Second form is in the next episode, noun, from the 14th century. 1, a small lateral or terminal protuberance of the stem of a plant that may develop into a flower, leaf, or shoot. Number 2, something not yet mature or at full development, as my brain. No, as 2A, an incompletely open flower. 2B, synonyms are child and youth. 2C, 1, an outgrowth of an organism that differentiates into a new individual. And a synonym is gemma, Gemma. 2C2, an outgrowth having the potential to differentiate and grow into a definitive organ or part. It would be great if somebody could just give me the bud of an organ that I need, and then it just grows. Synonym is primordium, as in an embryonic limb bud. Yeah, that's what they look like when the embryo is growing. They have a little bud where the arm should be, a little buds where the leg should be, probably a little bud where the nose is going to be, and eventually they turn into... That's crazy. When you... really, the fact that the cells can grow and turn into something is quite astonishing if you think about it. So I try not to because it hurts my brain. Number 3, synonym is buddy. My buddy, my buddy. We have a phrase, in the bud, and that means in an early stage of development, as in nipped the rebellion in the bud. Because, yeah, we don't want people to rebel. That's wrong, right? I'm being sarcastic. So we had bucksaw, buckshe, buckshot, buckskin, buckskinned, bucktail, buckthorn, bucktooth, buck up, buckwheat, buckyball, buckytube, bucolic, and bud. Those last two didn't work so well. I have to pick one, don't I? Bucolic would have to be the word of the episode, I think. So thank you very much for listening, and until next time, this is Spencer dispensing information, because that is my name. Hello, word nerds. Welcome to the dictionary. I forgot to mention, because it's so important, the last episode was page 161, the top of it. So we are now in the a little bit more to the middle of it. First word is bud. It is the second form verb from the 14th century. First is intransitive. Number 1 is of a plant. So 1A, to set or put forth buds. 1B, to commence growth from buds. They're very helpful buds. 2, to grow or develop from or as if from a bud. Number 3, to reproduce asexually, especially by the pinching off of a small part of the parent. That's scared me. It started to scare me a little bit. Yes, reproducing asexually means that you can just reproduce by yourself. You don't need a partner. You can just pinch off somehow a part of your body, and that will grow into the same thing that you are. How does this happen? This is like sci-fi stuff. But it's not. This next is the transitive definitions. 1, to produce or develop from buds. 2, to cause as a plant to bud. 3, to insert a bud from a plant of one kind into an opening in the bark of, in the bark of, usually in order to propagate a desired variety. I got so confused because there was parentheses, and my brain couldn't decide what to do. So the parentheses says, opening in the bark of a plant of another kind. Okay, butter is a noun. Moving on to Buddha, capital Buddha. I'm sure there's other ways to spell Buddha. I have a feeling that some people spell it without an H. This is a noun from 1681. 1, a person who has attained Buddhahood. Number 2, a representation of Gautama Buddha. This is a Sanskrit word which means enlightened. Wouldn't we all like to be that? How do you know when you hit there? When you hit that point? This is akin to the Sanskrit word bodhi, Bodhi. I sort of remember reading that one, which also means enlightenment, and there's more at the word bid. This is a good one. But next we have a couple related ones. Buddhahood, noun from 1837, a state of perfect enlightenment sought in Buddhism. Again, how do you know you've reached that point? Next is Buddhism. See, they just go from one to the next to the next. This is a noun from 1801, a religion. I would argue it is not a religion. I think that's what they say. A religion of Eastern and Central Asia growing out of the teaching of Gautama Buddha that suffering is inherent in life and that one can be liberated from it by mental and moral self-purification. Well, I think he just explained it, so we're all Buddhas now, right? Buddhist is a noun or an adjective. Okay. Next is, and then Buddhistic is an adjective. Next is budding, adjective from 1581, being in an early stage of development, as in budding novelists. Next is Buddleia or Buddleia, Buddleia, noun from 1791, any of a genus of shrubs or small trees of warm regions with showy terminal clusters of usually purple or white flowers, called also butterfly bush. Maybe we'll find a picture. It probably looks like there's a bunch of butterflies in the bush. The genus name is Buddleia of the family Loganaceae. And, this is from Adam Buddle, who was an English botanist who died in 1715. Next is buddy, first form noun from 1850. 1A, synonyms are companion and partner. 1B, number 1 definition for the word friend. Number 2, synonyms. One synonym is fellow, and this is used especially in informal address. Yeah, you're not going to go up to your boss or the king of a country and say, hey, buddy, although I kind of want to now. This is probably baby talk alternative of the word brother. Next is the second form of buddy. It is from 1918, to become friendly, usually used with up or with. So buddy up or buddy with. Now we have the third form of buddy, adjective from 1976, featuring a friendship or partnership between the two main, usually male characters, as in a buddy movie. Those are fun, aren't they? I don't have a buddy. Man, I guess my wife's my buddy, right? Yeah, she can hear me. She's my buddy. We work together, we joke around together, and it's a lot of fun. All right, next is buddy buddy, 2 words with a hyphen, adjective from 1951, familiarly friendly. Next is buddy system, noun from 1942, an arrangement in which 2 individuals are paired, as for mutual safety in a hazardous situation. Next is budge, Budge, first form, noun from the 14th century. A fur formerly prepared from lambskin dressed with the wool outward. I don't like this, sorry. Moving on to second form of budge. This is a verb from 1578. Intransitive is first. 1. Synonyms are move. I wish it was a movie. Move and shift, as in the mule wouldn't budge. Number 2, to give way. Synonym is yield, as in wouldn't budge on the issue. And then transitive verb is to cause, to move, or change. And when I was a kid, this is from the word boil. When I was a kid, if you cut in line, we said that you were budging. So that's a fourth or a third definition they could put in here. Now we have the third form of budge, or maybe it would be the fourth form. Adjective from 1599. It is archaic. Synonyms are pompous and solemn. The origin is unknown. And then lastly, we have budgerigar. Budgerigar? Okay. Budgerigar. Noun from 1840. A small Australian parrot, usually light green with black and yellow markings in the wild, but bred under domestication in many colors. Let's see, this is a scientific name is Melopsittacus undulatus. And this is from modified of the word Uwulare, which is an Australian Aboriginal language of northern New South Wales. That's the language, and the word is Gidgeridja. Sorry, I really clearly don't know how to pronounce that word. It is spelled, I think, Gijrrigaa. I feel terrible that I don't know that word, but I also know that I shouldn't feel terrible. But it's so fascinating to see words like this, and I just want to learn more about that. I don't know that language. I've never heard it. I think it's fascinating. Okay, we had bud, Buddha, Buddhahood, Buddhism, budding, budlia, buddy system, budge, bunch of budges, and budgerigar. By the way, yeah, it's a parrot. Well, I think I have to pick Buddhism as the word of the episode because if I absolutely had to choose, a sort of following a religion, a thing, if a gun to my head, if that's what I had to choose, I would pick Buddhism. Just from like the major ones that I know. I'm sure there's other little ones too that I'm just not aware of. But I don't want to pick something like that because I have to say I don't know. It's a big topic, and I don't like the rules. That's what I got to say about that. Yeah, thank you. This has been Spencer dispensing information. Goodbye.